Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life with Sabine Parzer. Hi, everybody. This is Sabine with another episode of Good Choices, a holistic conversation about dance, art, and life. I'm super happy to have a conversation with Andrew Wass. Andrew is an American dancer and researcher who has been living in Berlin, in Germany. And Andrew blurs the boundaries between empirical inquiry and embodied experience. He has a background in biochemistry from UC San Diego and has a PhD in dance from Texas Women's University. He has had an extensive career in teaching and performing contemporary dance and contact improvisation. He frames his movements as both a site of investigation and a generative medium. He works in different with different ensembles. One of them is one of the longest standing improvisational dance ensembles, lower left. And he's performed his work at different spaces all over the world, in Europe, in the US, and in Asia. And we had a lovely conversation about composition, about ensemble thinking, about contact improvisation as a form, as a whole, and as a worldwide phenomena, and about his personal development also in it, about aging as a dancer. And I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi, Andrew.
Hello.
Hello, hello. Yeah, we were just talking a little bit during the pre-check-in about that. I feel like we've crossed paths, but we never directly
Mm-hmm.
intersected. Like, I know a lot of your long-term collaborators, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I've known about you and your work, and I see your posts, but this is actually the first real conversation that we're having. And so it's kind of fun that
Mm-hmm.
it's recorded right away. So,
Yes,
I'm super happy that you're here.
I'm happy to be here. I'm very honored to be a part of this podcast. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, I keep hearing about you, seeing your posts also online, and knowing some people that have worked with you. And then you said
mm.
you worked with Mary and Karen. Yeah. So I think we were destined to meet, and maybe eventually again in the studio. Hopefully in the near
Yeah,
future.
there might be a chance for a live meeting for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, one question that I would like to start with, which is a question that I ask most everybody, is do
Mhm.
you have a memory of like an early memory or a visceral memory of yourself as a child or as an adolescent, um, about where you first remembered the joy of movement, or like a presence that you felt through moving that impacted you?
Joy of moving. Well, I joy of moving. I guess one of my earliest sensations, or not, it's not a very specific memory of like a moment, I guess, but a friend of mine when I was a kid, Nick, he and I would watch on Saturdays. There was a channel 56 on KDOC. It was a small independent TV station, and on Saturdays they would have black and white films that were badly dubbed, like the kung fu films from Hong Kong and Taiwan and I guess China also. We'd watch those, and then um, we would then go to his lawn at his house after them, and then try to recreate what we saw. Like, like someone jumping over there and then landing on somebody, and then you
Uh-huh.
do that, and then I'll do this, and I'll throw you that way, and so that was a ongoing practice for a while as a small child, I guess I was like 8, 9, 10, something like that,
Mm.
11, 12.
Sounds
So,
like
and
an inquiry into contact improvisation from afar.
yeah, yeah, it was a similar thing, except we were trying to beat each other up, but not trying to beat each other up. So there was
Mhm.
a bit more of a goal, I guess,
Mhm.
than you might say contact has. Yeah.
Did you grow
hmm
up with dance or with sports, or like how did you
Mm,
actually find your way into dancing?
I have an older sister, and she took ballet, and
Mm.
um, She's only 20 months older, so not much older. And my mom asked me if I wanted to go to take ballet class because I would jump around when there was music. And then I said no because ballet is for girls because all I saw in the class was girls. And
Mm.
then also the movement they were doing, I didn't find so interesting. Like I said, I was more interested in the kung fu kind of movement, and that's not happening in a ballet class so much. And so I didn't do dance. I grew up playing soccer in Southern California, and
Mm.
then did a lot of track in high school, varsity track, varsity soccer, tried wrestling a little bit, then got into rock climbing. That was big for a few years. And then when I was studying in college, I found modern dance, modern
Mm.
one with Gene Isaacs, sort of a Graham Lamone mix, I think it was, and a lot of swoop and scoop and undercurve and
Mm.
learning phrases. And then
What
through
school was that
there,
at? What
that
school
that
did you
was
go
yeah,
to first?
that was University of California, San Diego, where
Okay.
I was
Is that where
studying
you grew
biochem.
up? That
I
general
mean,
area?
that's yeah, like 2 hours north of there is where I grew up.
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
then a girlfriend in college said, "Hey, let's go to a contact class in jam." And then I
Mm-hmm.
was Margaret Pack, and then we went to. She took me to a studio called Sushi Performance and Visual Art, and Karen might have been the teacher. I don't remember. Maybe Sarah Jaffe or Nina. I don't remember who was the teacher of the class. And then I'd never done contact before, just done ballet and modern and some ballet. And then, but contact improvisation felt very familiar. Like I already kind of knew it. Couldn't really do it
Mm.
right or whatever that means, but
Mm-hmm.
it made sense.
Hmm.
Uh,
And so if we go back just a little bit still into
mhm.
like your first, I'm always kind of looking for when people sort of find their professional lives, like where are the
Mm,
seeds in their early
yeah.
development or even as early
Hmm.
adults. Like I remember, I co-teach a lot with Alicia Grayson, who you probably know.
Mm,
And
hmm.
Alicia, she's also, she studied ecology and biology and like contact kind of appeared through how also in college. And I remember she was sharing with her like her first memories of learning phrases. Like was that something that was easy for you, sort of that confined way of doing movement?
Confined. It was, I mean, I could do it. I didn't really enjoy it. I never
Uh-huh.
understood why people were so tied to certain movement. Like we'd be learning a phrase or making a phrase like, oh, I don't remember, was it this way or that way? And I was like, well,
Yeah.
just pick one.
Who
It doesn't really
cares, right?
matter.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Just pick one and let's move on. Unless
Mm.
there was some sort of idea behind why it was this versus that
Hmm.
tied to the piece,
Yeah.
or the concept that we were trying to portray. And then, and so that desire for specificity without a reason didn't make sense to me. And
Hmm.
so I was like, and the process oriented nature of improvising or contact improvising made more sense to
Mm.
me
Mm.
than recreating a made phrase, a set phrase.
Hmm. So can you remember the feeling when you first started doing contact?
Uh, uh, um, that it just felt like home. Of like, okay, that
Mm-hmm.
I think it just harkened back to messing around with my friend Nick and probably with my dad also of
Mm-hmm.
doing something for the sheer joy of movement but also related back to sports, like the whole art sport thing, I guess, but I don't like that term art sport. But anyways, uh, that it's following a process. Like soccer is very much following a process. You don't plan so much where the ball goes. Everybody kind of has their specific, more or less, but open roles, and you have the goal to get the ball in the goal. But what happens is pretty much open, and where the ball goes is open. And so that
And it's a
is
team
since
sport.
and it's a team sport as opposed to, yeah, because track was just like run, go around, and not so much process engagement there. I mean, there is a process of running, but the I also just like weight. I also just like pressure. I like
mm,
exertion. I like muscular
mm,
engagement.
mm,
So contact improvisation has that also, which was familiar.
mm,
From rock climbing of, grabbing and pulling and exerting yourself and sweating
mm, mm.
and sweating more in a contact improvisation class or jam or performance than in a uh, more traditionally choreographed one.
Yeah. Um, on your bio, you write that you combine empirical inquiry and embodied experience.
Hmm.
You have a degree in biochemistry, so you
Yeah.
clearly come from a scientific point of view.
Yeah.
And it also says that you're busy with trying to combine these, or I don't know, maybe you can explain that sort of that
Yeah.
general those are big fields that generally sort of have a divide in them, and my
Hmm.
assumption is that you're probably looking for the overlay or the communication field in between, but what is
Yeah.
it that you're actually researching in there?
What am I? Well, what I'm, well, I was in college, like I said, studying biochemistry and working in a lab at Scripps Institute of Oceanography, and working with grad students and postdocs and a professor. And it really dawned on me how representational science is. That you have this little vial of liquid that I got from running sea sponges through size exclusion columns, and you have this little bit of liquid, and you put it in a NMR machine or an IR spectrometer, and it makes this graph that tells you what's in there. And I was
Mm,
like, ugh, this is so disconnected.
mm,
And dance and contact improvisation, or dance is just immediate. It's right there. You're touching it. There's no if, ands, or buts of what's happening. It's well, buts, but haha, joke. But uh, it's immediate. It's not representational. So I got tired of the
and it's
representation in
sensation
science,
based, and it's sensation
and it's
based,
sensation
or
based.
it's
Yeah,
so it's quite
it's be
subjective. I mean, I think one of the biggest problems might be that one claims to be objective and the other one is highly subjective, right? Or is that
yeah. They're both objective. They're both subjective. It's not either or.
Mhm,
Like there's a book, "Meeting the Universe Halfway" by Karen
mhm,
Barad, and she talks about that. So
mm,
that's what my thinking or process, I guess. What is my thinking? My thinking is that sort of from my little exposure into the scientific process of like, you have all these things and you change one variable at a time. Just one little
mhm,
thing changes each time. And so that's a lot of how I work with my teaching, my performance making, my research, if you will, in dance of, let's do something, let's understand what variables there are, and let's change them and change one of
mhm,
them
mhm,
to see what
mhm,
works and what doesn't work. And so that's helped me arrive at, yeah, my work basically. Not It doesn't always work with most, or it doesn't work with some people to do that so specifically. It can be tiring
mhm,
for some folk. I remember when I taught at the West Coast Contact Improvisation Festival. It was at 2006 or something. I was teaching the four winds in contact improvisation, and the four winds is a score I learned from Nina Martin, where you take solo body movement and you divide it into shape and space, and moving and stillness. And so you have four. You have moving shape, moving space, static shape, static space, moving shape, static space, and static shape, moving space. Or anyway, those four. And so I made a chart to put that into the duet in contact improvisation. I drew up a chart of all 16 combinations that there were.
Mhm.
And I had the class, and had everybody go through them systematically, all combinations. And I thought it was so interesting and very exciting. And after a while, I could look in the room and people were just like, and somebody was like, I'm being so rude to my partner. And because he was just being still
Mm. Mm.
while the other person's trying to dance with them. And so that sort of that duk, the duk, the duk, the duk, which I find very interesting. And then for me, then it also
It
pushes the possibilities.
Yeah,
What
it's
were
such
you
a
going to
great
say?
score. I learned it actually from
Yeah.
Esther Gall. Esther passed it
Mm-hmm.
on via Nina.
Yeah.
And I've been using it also in reference with some of my teachers trainings participants. I feel like especially it's such a great score to get people out of their normal way of out of their
Mm.
patterns, out of their
Yeah.
patterns of relating, out of their patterns of relating to each other, out of the
Mm-hmm.
patterns of relating to space, and it
Yeah.
is brainy to a certain degree, but once you kind of go through that, there's an enormous amount of freedom that comes with it, an
Yeah.
enormous amount of new possibilities, but you have to kind of have an endurance for it or a certain level of
Yeah.
appreciation for the deep ride. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were talking about changing one variable, I was reminded, and I'm wondering if that's connected to that. I was reminded of the videos that you lately have posted about you doing push-ups in different environments. Is that also
Mm-hmm.
related? Because I love the simplicity of it because
Mm-hmm.
I basically see you doing push-ups, but it's like yeah, sometimes you do it on the beach and sometimes you do it on a rock in like an incline and sometimes you did it in like a tunnel situation or something. So I mean it's
Yeah.
just hilarious altogether because it's so simple and kind of funny
Mm-hmm.
and perfect for the format also. I feel like, you know, a little Instagram or Facebook
Huh.
post. But I'm
Yes.
wondering if that's connected to changing a variable.
Yeah, it is. I mean, years ago I did and I never finished it, but I started a film project I called the October Project, and where it was breaking dance film down into costume, location, camera angle, movement, and performer. And I would, like one I kept everything the same except for the location. So I filmed myself doing a phrase. That's where I learned a phrase. I did it in Berlin. I did it at my mom's house in Southern California. I did it a bunch of different places at Potsdamer Platz, and then I put them together so you see the same camera angle, the same person, the same costume, the same movement phrase, but where it happens, and then also who's behind it and walking through is different. And I did that for also camera angle. I filmed it in Marfa, Texas, but I did a different movement phrase, but filmed it close from over here, from far away, and then like da, da, da. So it's not directly that project, but sort of akin to just same movement, different location, and different idea of like, because it's always paired with a thought or a statement about dance, about art, about life, and that's just what I like to make. I mean, I haven't done so much lately because I got tendonitis in my elbows from too many
Okay.
push-ups.
See, there's the limitation right there.
There's a
That's
limitation,
the end of
yes.
the. There's a limitation. You stretch it until you far you can, and then life
Yeah.
gives you the end.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we could go in many different directions from here, but maybe just
Yeah.
to kind of tie it over from the science. So, do you think like
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm not a scientist at all? Like you
Mm-hmm.
know, like I'm much more a practitioner and a hands-on person. Um, but do you feel like sort of the scientific background has helped you to kind of also help to work abstractly, or also working with sort of the abstraction of postmodern dance, like dissecting
Mm-hmm.
or retracting or sort of those like those original compositional tools that we used in the 90s that nobody knows about anymore. I don't know. Like, do you feel like there's an intersection between sort of the scientific approach and sort of a compositional mind? Maybe that's a better question.
Oh, compositional mind. The scientific. Well, yeah, I think that the to me, what I read it somewhere that science is the systematic approach from not knowing to knowing. And so it's not, if you look at it that way, it's not a specific kind of
Hmm.
subject that you're researching. It could be how your knee
Hmm.
bends. It could be
Hmm.
your inner ear sensation. To like know more about your inner ear sensation when
Yeah.
leaning with eyes open or eyes closed, but just knowing, okay, I'm going to not do it randomly, but follow some sort of system, whatever that may be. So it's more of a,
Research.
yeah, it's research. It's searching again and again and again. It's the and the
Hmm.
search. And
Hmm.
within that research, are you changing the tools you use to search, or are you changing the subject matter that you're searching? And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
keeping one of those two areas static while you change the other. Um, so yeah, I would say in the scientific process, if I could speak about it, but it's been like 20 something years since I was actually engaging in it in the normal
Hmm.
sense, uh,
Hmm.
um, that it's very much is about composition, because you have to know what you know, and you have to know what you don't know, and then you have to figure out how to get from A to B. And that's, to me, is like making a dance. You know what you know, and you know what you want your dance to
Hmm.
be about, and so, or relate to, or so how do you then get there? There has to be
Hmm.
some, and there's all these examples of scientists who are also artists, like Da Vinci, and there was a professor at UC San Diego who was big in the biology department, but he also played the cello a lot, and
Hmm.
so it's just another example of a specious divide that serves nobody, to
Hmm.
keep these things so separate. But I think
Hmm.
it because that's when I met Mary Overly and her viewpoints. That
Hmm.
for me was a very, if you will, scientific way of thinking about things. Of, oh, here are these 6 variables:
Hmm.
space, shape, time, emotion, movement, and story. Which there's 6, and very similar to like Newtonian physics of mass, distance, and time explains all
Hmm.
these phenomena that we engage with
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
still apply. Um, and so dance had these 6 things, and what if I have these 6 and I just change the movement of the situation? What's that going to do? And then that process of changing one thing at a time, just through thinking about it, then like with the ensemble thinking work, which I see sort of as an offshoot in a way of the viewpoints. For me, like the ensemble thinking is the viewpoints in practice, and the viewpoints is a theory. Um,
Hmm.
I'm not sure how other people would think about that, but whatever. Um, what was my point? Oh, just of like, then when you have a known practice of a certain thing, a certain practice, then you can identify the variables and just begin to tweak them one at a time.
Hmm.
And so I guess that background that I have, it helps me do that. And
Yeah.
like with,
I would
uh,
actually love to
yeah,
talk a little
yeah.
bit more about ensemble thinking, but maybe
Hmm.
as a step beforehand. Um,
Sure.
you have been a part of Lower Left. I don't know how long you have been a part of, but Lower Left is like one of the
Hmm.
longest running improvisational dance ensembles that I know of. How
Hmm.
long have you been a part of them?
Of 24 years or so, something like that. I'm not
Yeah.
exactly
And
sure.
do you know how
I
long
encountered,
it's existed? How long? When
it
did
was,
it start originally?
I want to say 94,
Hmm.
95, when Nina moved from New York to San Diego. And
That's
then
Nina Martin.
she,
Yeah.
yeah, Nina Martin, and she met Mary Reich, now Mary, what is Peterson now? And Jane Blount and Karen Schaffman in San Diego. I don't know exactly which time. And Karen and Nina had worked together in Amsterdam, I think it was, or
Hmm.
Arnhem. And oh my gosh, what are you doing here? Oh, what are you doing here? And then they were sort of like-minded individuals in San Diego. And so then they started working, and there was Gwen Ritchie was there for a bit with them, and
Wow.
Sarah Jaffe, and I think somebody else, Gwen Ritchie Hunter, and then or Hunter Ritchie. Um, and then I started taking workshops from them because they were doing stuff that I was more interested in than where other places I had been studying. And then in 2001 or two, I forget, they asked me to join. And then Nina moved to Marfa, and I moved up to the Bay Area, and Margaret moved to New York. And so everybody's kind of, and so
But somehow you
we,
managed. I mean, I think one of the things that's
yeah.
amazing is that you stayed committed. I mean, you've been living in Berlin now for a while also, so you have this
Mm-hmm.
other continent in between. And I mean, one of the
Yeah.
biggest difficulties in prolonged company work is how do you find time and a place to get
Mm-hmm.
together? But I feel like what I sense. I guess you guys also performed at CI 50. Was that right? Did you guys perform?
Yes, we did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Karen
yeah,
joined us, and Anya Cloud, and
yeah,
I
yeah.
forget
I
who else
remember
was there.
seeing
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We had a
So,
score. Yeah.
I met Karen in Budapest because she was
Mm.
there during Estergal's beautiful festival. I met her a few
Mm-hmm.
times, and such an inspirational, such a sweet person, but also such an incredible mind around dance, and also her dance historical knowledge, and just I just
Mm-hmm.
had an
Mm-hmm.
immediate connection. And then there was a year when there was a really a dedication to you guys' work, lower left, and then Mary
Mm-hmm.
Reich was also there, and both Karen and Mary are also Feldenkrais practitioners, and I also have a
Mm-hmm.
Feldenkrais background, and so
Ah, okay.
we
Yeah.
just had a really good time, sort of working with that intersection of somatics and improvisation, and just yeah,
Mm-hmm.
enjoying sort of the what I really remember about. I mean, besides them being incredibly beautiful movers, also was just that dedication to investigation, or that dedication to many things that you were mentioning before, to really this
Mm-hmm.
um you know the richness of the compositional tools that are available, and that I actually feel
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of people that are studying dance or that are studying contact improvisation don't even know about. Like, I feel like so much of what I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
in my trainings, and I'm assuming you are also doing, is passing on these basics, these fundamentals of what dance is actually built on, that
Mm-hmm.
are the ingredients for all of these compositions. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it's a craft, or these are building blocks of a craft that have not been, that have kind of been lost, or kind of in the soup of contact improvisation
Yeah.
becoming a global phenomena. People are kind of losing some of these ingredients. Um, so
Yes.
anyway, I just yeah, there's many topics in there, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering, like, how ensemble thinking in particular has influenced you and your dancing, and I know that you're also teaching it, and if you
Mm.
could explain ensemble thinking to those who don't know about it.
Ensemble thinking. What is it? It is a group or some group scores, movement practices, ways of looking at space and time and shape of an ensemble, and how the individual can relate to the group, how the group can relate to the individual. And it was initiated by Nina. She was dancing with Channel Z, a group in New York. That was Stephen Petronio, Randy Warshaw, Diane Madden, Daniel Lepkoff,
Mm.
Robin Feld, and Paul Langland. And their core connection, I guess, was contact improvisation. Um, Diane and Steve and Petronio and Randy were dancing with Trisha Brown. Nina was working with David Gordon. Daniel Lepkoff was working with Steve Paxton. Paul Langland was working with Meredith Monk. I don't know much about Robin Felds. So they had these other performance-based practices, but then they would meet and their common language was contact improvisation, and then they would perform, and then Nina would say that, oh, she, after the performance, she's like, oh, that wasn't quite right for her for whatever reason. And then I think working with Mary and the viewpoints or Mary's influence, and Nina hasn't talked so much about it that I remember, but then breaking things down of like some simple scores, like one is called One Idea. It's just how to get the whole group, the ensemble, however many people, to do one spatial thing, whether it's stand in a line or stand in a circle or make a random assortment or
Move across the floor.
yeah. And then how do you take that through space? Once you create the
Yeah.
one shape, then how do you move it? And how do you move it and not get lost in the joy of moving your solo-ness, but as in service to the ensemble? And then other scores such as give and take focus, deal with spatial relationships to highlight one person or duet or trio or one location in space. And some people love being looked at while they're dancing, and others don't want to be looked at. Others will want to support and give somebody else the focus. So that score deals with the hotspot or the focus. And for me, ensemble thinking was a great boon to me because I started dancing later than a lot of people. And I was dancing with people who had a lot more traditional training, flexibility, performance experience. And so they could learn phrases faster, or they could, kick their leg higher or do things like that. But then ensemble thinking, because it's more about the space relationship and the time relationship, allowed someone like me to make choices within a dance and still contribute without having to have the kinespheric virtuosity. So it kind of evens the playing field, so to speak, of you can take focus just by finding the right place in space, as opposed to having to do a backflip. I mean, it's nice to be able to do a backflip and find a place in
But
space,
you don't have
but if
to.
you're going to,
But
you don't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and then, like I
So
said
would you
earlier,
say
the
that?
sort of yeah,
Yeah. No, go ahead. Go
It's
ahead.
just that so then each score within ensemble thinking like, oh, this one relates more to space relationship. This one's more about timing. And so then that allowed me to then come in and tweak the variables of each score.
And so is ensemble thinking like a collection of scores, or is it more like a general approach to composition, or both?
That's a good question. I think it's both. Like we were doing the ensemble thinking certification program, and is it X amount of scores? And then also, is it X, or is it these scores that you have to do in a certain order or not? That's always a question of discussion of like, do we start with one idea? Do we start with simul start? Or then which score is ensemble thinking, which isn't ensemble thinking? And for me, since finishing since doing my doctorate, I've got more into process philosophy and trying to look at things more as processes as opposed to substances. And so that's sort of why I find ensemble thinking and viewpoints kind of coming together as the process of looking at variables present in the phenomenon of dance and teasing them out and developing scores to highlight those moments, to highlight those abilities. And so it's both, I guess, as a process and substance.
So, and would you consider contact improvisation being one element or one possibility within the ensemble thinking process? Do you separate that?
Uh, there's a score called 3-2 or 2-3, depending upon how you want to write it down,
Mm.
and that means it like in its a simple example. You have 5 people, and 3 of them are doing one thing, and 2 of them are doing another. One is
Mm.
like level. You have 3 up here, and 3 standing and 3 squatting, or 3 3 and 2, and like who changes, it's open, but you have to have 3 and 2 at one level or another. And then we do that for level, for movement, and also for touch or contact, of 3 people in contact and 2 or 2 in contact. And so I would say that, not that contact improvisation is part of ensemble thinking or ensemble thinking is part of contact improvisation. They both exist, and they can both be used to do whatever you want. And they can be used as lenses to observe, or they can be used as tools to create. Like you can look at something, you could look at a soccer game, look through the lens of ensemble thinking. To see the spatial relationships, the timing relationships. So, but I wouldn't say that soccer is part of ensemble thinking.
Would be fun though.
Yeah.
Would be fun. It would be fun to have like people who know both, like soccer and contact improvisation, and to make it an ensemble thinking project. Yeah.
Yeah, like when there's when there's like a free kick, like the son of the team makes a wall, and then there's the one idea, and then there's the Elfmeter, and then there's the one and then there's the goalie who's in the hot spot, and then it's
a solo
it's all there
for the goalie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I started mentioning it already. You probably heard it through my undertones of complaining about the missing craft in, in the contact improvisation community. I'm wondering about your point of view, since I don't know, I don't even know if you know that, but I went to school in Chicago in the 90s, so I have a bachelor's of arts in modern dance. And I was very much brought up with compositional tools. With, my main teachers were Jen Eckert and Shirley Mordine, and they were, coming from a Limon background, but like lots of improvisational and compositional tools. And actually, Chris Aiken was one of my first teachers, and Kathleen Maltese was one of my first teachers. So I now have a very strong basis in that sort of lineage of experiencing contact improvisation, and also the people that I collaborate with have. And of course, this worldwide phenomena of the spread of contact improvisation is awesome. And at the same time, I feel like exactly what you were talking about, the point of view of ensemble thinking, there's, from my perspective, that there's a lack of simply knowledge or exposure to composition as a part of the contact improvisation practice. And I'm wondering how you feel about that, or what you'd like to share about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think it's where to begin. I think it's interesting that in a lot of the underscore language that there was noticing composition as opposed to creating composition. That's maybe other people have, but for me, I've been bringing in, when I do underscores, of bringing in the glyph of creating composition. Because if you have the open score, it's the big rectangle, and then noticing composition is the corners, and then and action plus awareness is movement, you could say, or they're intertwined. But the underscore language was, for me, favoring just the awareness of, as opposed to the creation. And so then if you have the lines of the missing parts, you put noticing composition and creating composition, and that creates the open score. So I think
just to make sure that everybody knows what we're talking about is we're talking about Nancy Stark Smith underscore, and maybe you can just lay that out a little bit for people who don't know it so well.
So
just for a
Nancy, noticed this similar phenomenon happening over again at jams, and so then she started to give terms to these things that would happen, and then drew glyphs to them, and so it's a whole language basically of um, how to describe what's happening at an underscore at a jam, and then it's become its own a kind of own jam in its own right, where people then focus on different elements and pull them apart. And so that's the underscore in a very short
Mm. I
description
think this is one of the reasons why it's become so popular also, is because
is
people don't know about it, and so it's like, "Oh, wow, there's all these elements," and I'm like,
mm-hmm,
"Yeah, they've always been there." I mean, I love the underscore, and I think it's valuable, but it's not the
yeah,
first time that they have appeared, but for many people, it's the first time
yeah,
of being exposed
mm-hmm,
to these elements. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
and
so you were talking about
yeah,
observing composition versus
vision,
creating composition.
yeah, and I think because I also very early on when I was, you know, dancing, and then contact improvisation, I came across that, and it became part of my performance practice of jamming was a way to practice the contact improvisation to then do it better, whatever that means,
Mhm,
do it better on stage. Um, and so now I think as the main focus, if you will, of contact improvisation has become jamming. And
mhm,
then I think it's gone
mhm,
even a step further now, that jamming is now in service to an experiential event of a few days in a beautiful place. And so the goal isn't to dance, the goal isn't to jam, the goal is to be in a nice location with community, which is a wonderful thing, to build community and have a good time. But I think that sort of has a retrograde effect, if that's the right word, on the practice somewhat, that people don't want to spend as much time um, sweating through the details, if you will, to learn more that can happen within their dancing. Because I mean, I haven't been at such a large festival like Freiburg in a long time, but classes of like 80 people, and a third of them come late, and a third of them leave early, and then another third is asleep on the floor because they were jamming all night, and you're trying to maintain focus as a teacher, and you're basically shouting because the room is so big, and I only speak English and German, so I'm not reaching everybody in the space. And I think a lot of people then experience contact improvisation in these kinds of settings where the focus is very diffuse on the learning process. So
mhm,
that's what they get to understand the learning process of contact improvisation to be very open and loose and come and go as you please. Um, and so then it's kind of like a downward spiral.
mhm,
But I think now, in a weird way, maybe it's not a weird way, but now with the advent of social media, there's all these accounts of, people watching each other doing flips and things, and I, put lifts and rides online, and then so I think people are then again wanting to learn how to do all that stuff because it's fun and it looks good, but then that's tweaking contact improvisation to be like sort of this kind of vocabulary to do this and then this and then this and then you do that and then you do that, as opposed to here's this process you engage in, and maybe these things come up and you can recognize them. Like
mhm,
Barbara Dilley says that improvisation is pattern recognition, and so you're recognizing in the moment, oh, this pattern is coming up and can arise, and then maybe I can engage in this vocabulary that I know as part of the improvisation, but it's
mhm,
making it
mhm,
in a way more chunky.
mhm.
Um, and I think I lost my train of thought.
No, it's great. It's great. I could just go like, yeah, yes, yes.
Because
No,
there's a great. Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
no, I mean, I think part of it is, of course, it's the shadow of the success. Yeah, that's the shadow
Mm,
part of them not having regulated. I think it's awesome that at one point,
hmm
these guys sat together and said, okay, we want to make a registered trademark. And they even had the legal papers, and then they threw them out and said, okay, we want to keep this form alive. And it grew
hmm
from there, and it became, it's become what it's become on multiple sort of arenas, like what you're mentioning. I think
hmm
is one of the biggest issues around it is that it's become such a social interaction and community tool, which I love about it as well, but it gets diluted in
hmm
many ways, and it gets sort of the
Yeah.
origins or the performative aspects of it or the research aspect of it gets lost.
hmm
So I feel like it's the shadow aspect of the freedom that
hmm
the founders gave
hmm
us, and we can now see what we can do with that. So, one of the big interventions that I feel I can do is being a teacher and also teaching. I
hmm
also teach teachers, and you're teaching. So, my question to that effect would be, what makes a good improvisational teacher or contact improvisation teacher? But what do you think is makes a good teacher? Or what's important to
Makes a
you
good
when you are
teacher.
teaching?
What makes a good teacher for me is that the students can write something down and remember the score, the exercise, the process that they did, and do it without the teacher being there.
Hmm.
I find that some teachers are very much about the experience you have with them in the room, and it's mystical and wonderful, but then in the end, what was it? I have no idea. Um, and then also that understanding that what the person teaches might arrive at a different aesthetic than what the teacher likes. Um, which I find, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but I find like a lot of sort of first generation teachers of a certain material, they don't understand the difference between teaching what they like and teaching their tool or their
Hmm.
practice. Um, I remember there was a workshop with Ruth Zipporah in San Diego that I was at, and I forget which exercise it was, what score it was from her work. And somebody did it with the thing, and then she gave the person feedback. Oh, you that was not right because of X, Y, and Z. And then most everybody who watched it was like, oh, well, no, for us, that person did that score correctly because of da 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 da. Da. And then she said, well, if you're if you aren't interested in my aesthetic, why did you have me come here or something like that?
Mhm.
So for her, it was very much what she likes and what she teaches were one. And that was a very interesting moment for me of, oh, okay, but they're different and they should be different. I mean, it's like any other kind of artistic tool, a paintbrush or a hammer or a camera can create all sorts of aesthetics. And learning how to use a camera correctly is different than um, uh, what you're supposed to make with it.
Hmm.
And so I find that, I guess for me, that's two things. So when I'm teaching contact improvisation, I don't want people to dance like me necessarily. I want them to be aware of options and then dance how they
Hmm.
see fit.
Hmm.
Um, uh, because I don't want to just make a bunch of clones of me. That would be not very interesting to dance with. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
It takes a certain amount of maturity, though. A certain
Mm-hmm.
amount of not needing. Chris Aiken once said, "I don't need my students to love me." So, like a certain a certain amount of coolness that
Mm-hmm.
it's less about us and more about the material. Um,
Yeah.
I do wonder though,
Mm-hmm.
so I agree with you in many ways, and I do wonder if there is a certain amount of how would I put that? Like it's a not very it's a non-logical word, but joviality or
Mhm.
a certain amount of, I don't know, kindness also towards our students or our participants, or an openness toward like
Mhm.
maybe it's the easiest way, a curiosity also about me as a teacher towards my students, so that I also have a sense that I am learning something. I might not
Mhm.
feel that always, but that there's always a two-way street. So I feel
Yeah.
like so many times if I concentrate not on my sort of insecurity as a person or as a teacher, but on the material, that I'm actually learning a lot through my
Mhm.
students. And that sort of puts the focus on the material in the middle and less about who am I in this, or who are they even, or like you said, what is the aesthetic in it, but
Yeah.
what is there to be shared or what is there to be learned together. But I feel like it takes a certain amount of, yeah, also, practice or experience to be able to do
Mhm.
that, because we get so hung up about as people, which is very human, about our
Yeah.
insecurities. "Oh, am I good enough?" Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, all the time. Imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I fast enough? Am I well, yeah, humility and humor also,
Yeah.
to get people laughing together as a way to break the ice, as a way to,
Mm. Oh.
um, have beginners be more comfortable in the space, um but I think also that, like, going back to the popularity of lifestyle events, that um, you have to sell it, I guess, and then you want the participants to like the teacher so that they'll go and have a nice time, so that the event makes money. So that's a different thing than, it's a consumerist marketplace, I guess.
Well, and I mean, it's a reality also. I mean,
Mhm.
you and I were parents also, and we're also, like there's a certain reality to being a dance teacher in this world, that
Mhm.
we do have to pay our rent, we do have children to take care of, or businesses to run. And I feel like
Yeah.
there's always this sort of pure, what is that? Purism around, oh, the arts have to just kind of stay pure in themselves and are not allowed to sell out in a certain way.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, and like I
Mhm.
was a single mom for 20 years. It's like, and I have to create a structure that allows me to
Mhm.
actually do my job. Like if I'm not
Yeah.
looking at the money side of things, I can't do the work that I actually love. So there's sort of
Mhm.
a middle ground of also being realistic of how do I sustain myself and my children. And maybe then I do have to do some advertisement, or I do have to put it within a structure that makes
Mhm.
it easier for people to enter the process. I think
Yeah.
for me, the main focus is still about, is it about me and getting attention, or is it about,
Mhm.
you know, basically the sort of the narcissism of being a teacher out there. And I think we all have to kind of look out for that, because it's easy to be adored and to be admired. Oh, you're so awesome and blah blah blah. But to then continually also step back and go back into the practice and say, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
about that. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so if we manage to do that, I think it helps all of us. It helps all of us also
Mhm.
to stay fresh within the material. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's the, my regular Thursday class in Marameo, there's always people coming in who've never danced before or done contact before, but maybe some other kind of movement, and so it's always having to reintroduce the basic things, but then there's also people who've been doing contact improvisation for years, so it's like this
Mm.
balance, and so it's teaching as a form of research in terms of how can I approach this fundamental concept from this way, from this way, from this way, from this way, to keep other people engaged and to keep myself engaged. And so I really enjoy that of
Mm.
always having to find a new way to say the same thing.
Huh.
And one thing that I've been doing lately that really has been stretching me, and I started doing a contact improvisation alphabet that each class is based on a letter of the alphabet. And last week it was the letter Y. And so I have 3 words that come from that. I had yaw, Y-A-W, Y-axis, and what was the other Y? And yield.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
each week I have, that this past year, I guess I've been going just A, B, just all the way through in order.
Mhm.
And so then I have to come up with these other words.
Mhm.
And
Are you going to start with the German alphabet next? So then you
I
have
would,
the
I
A
could do
and
it
the
in German. Oh,
in
well,
German. So you start with the next
maybe
language.
I
So
could.
you
Yeah.
don't so you don't get bored after that.
Yeah. But
But what
it's, I
I'm
mean, there's
hearing,
always,
what I'm hearing,
yeah.
yeah, what I'm hearing is,
Yeah.
and I think that's awesome, is you give yourself structures to keep on
Mm-hmm.
investigating, to find
Oh,
different
yeah.
ways of naming it or voicing
Mm-hmm.
it or entering the practice. And I think that is so important. Is
Yeah.
that yeah, we find our own entrances into it and be creative about that and mix
Mm-hmm.
and match
And the,
and turn it upside down.
and frequently I get up with words that I don't know really how it applies. And then so I tell the
Mm,
people in the class, I'm not really sure how this works.
mm,
So you figure it out. And I
mm,
think some people like that, some people don't. Um,
mm,
of
mm.
being tasked with figuring out how it applies to contact improvisation.
Yeah.
Um,
So we're kind of getting towards the end of our podcast. I'm
oh,
wondering if
okay.
there's yeah. I'm wondering if there's anything that you would like to share about what you're working on. Is there something that like
Hmm.
a creative project that you're engaged in
Creative
right now
project.
that you want to share?
Um, well, yeah, like with a colleague of mine, Caterina Mocciola, we've been teaching together a while, and we've done a couple performances of something called Of the Concrete and the Abstract. And I've also, so what I'm trying to do is I'm interested in seeing like what happens when people, what is read when people of different sizes and looks and backgrounds practice contact improvisation together, and how that relates to the spoken word. And
Hmm.
so with her, we've done like where she's completely passive, laying there, but she's using her voice to direct me to do things. And
Hmm.
then, or I'm passive and talking and telling her to do things, or and so the different combinations thereof. And then I did a performance with my son recently with text about my father, and so I'm just really interested. And then I did a text with a friend of mine here in Berlin, Abi, and I spoke a text by Gertrude Stein about Pablo Picasso while he and I did a contact improvisation duet. And so it's kind of like, well, is it? That's beforehand. I was thinking it's kind of like the Kuleshov effect from film, of what you see before affects what you see after. But
Hmm.
what I guess is the long-winded thing of what are the power dynamics of identity and language in relation to contact improvisation.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and so trying to bring and create other performances to fall under that umbrella to see how it all works.
Hmm.
That's one thing I'm busy with.
Hmm. Maybe one last question is because I'm
Hmm.
also busy with it. Is how are you dealing with aging and receiving and giving weight? No, I mean
Yeah.
it's a valid question.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know exactly. I don't know exactly how old you are. I'm 55, and I've had my share of injuries also from being a professional dancer, and I love working with weight. And I also
Hmm.
am noticing that I have different needs around that as I'm aging. And
Hmm.
I'm wondering how you personally deal with it, and or also in your teaching.
I'm 52,
Hmm.
and I deal with it by doing push-ups. I'm trying to do push-ups of keeping at it, of still taking weight, still giving weight. Uh, because if you don't move it, you lose it. And so just still trying to, through my irregular yoga practice, um, jamming and dancing as much as I can. I mean, I could always more. Berlin's got, I don't know how many jams a week, but yeah, I mean, I've got all sorts of injuries also from all the years, and trying to dance smarter and harder to keep going.
Yeah.
Trying to
But
keep
I'm
up
also
with the young kids. Yeah.
uh-huh. Uh-huh. But I'm also
You're also,
hearing I'm also hearing strength work. So one of the
oh
things that
yeah.
I'm trying to navigate or have my inquiry about is that for me, for my body, I don't think that only doing contact improvisation is the practice to stay
No.
healthy in the
Mm-mm.
long term. So I've started doing gyrotonics and Pilates actually, and it's
Mm-hmm.
really just supported me in my strength
Oh
training.
yeah.
And I think as I've, as I go through the different stages in my life, also, I gave birth to 2 children, and that severely changed, the arrangement in my pelvis and my iliac
Mm-hmm.
joints and blah, blah, blah. So whatever impacts we're having on our bodies, and through
Yeah.
perimenopause, of course, all of our joints and the hormonal changes are affecting bodies, and female bodies different than
Mm-hmm.
male bodies or non-binary
Yeah.
bodies. And,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like it's also worth talking about. Like there's a whole
Oh yeah.
generation of dancers that have been dancing for a really long time, and I feel like we're very agile, we're much fitter than many people are. And there's still also a shadow aspect of it is yes, there's injuries and it's
Yeah.
painful sometimes, and we do have to work on it in order to sustain
Mm-hmm.
the practice.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah. It's strength training. There's a good floor bar class at Mara Mayo on Fridays I want to keep going to. That's great for the feet and the legs and the hips.
mm,
Um, it's like releasing won't get you through it.
yeah,
There has to be,
yeah. I
you
think
gotta
that's a
have,
great
yeah.
compositional endpoint to this conversation. Like releasing won't get you to the end of it. It's
No.
no, I think we need some structure, we need some
Yes.
compositional tools, we need some
Yes.
clarity, we need some
Mm-hmm.
restrictions,
Oh
we
yeah.
need some craft. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's a really good endpoint.
Sounds good.
Sounds good to you. Well, thank you,
Sure.
Andrew.
Yeah.
I
Thank
sure
you so
hope that
much.
we get to dance together. I'm hoping to come to
Yes.
Berlin soon
Mm-hmm.
and meet you on the dance floor.
Yes,
So,
yes. So
thank you.
see you then. Yes.
See you then. Keep on dancing.
Bye.
Bye-bye. If you would like to know more about holistic dance and the Holistic Dance Institute, please visit us at our website www.holistic-dance.at. Holistic dance is an invitation to transformation through dance, movement, and touch. It was founded by me, Sabine Parzer, in 2010. It is a mix of different methods, a dynamic cross-method approach from dance pedagogical, dance and body therapeutic, systemic and holistic methods. We offer authentic movement, integrative contact improvisation, somatics and applied anatomy, improvisation, ecosomatics, and many more elements. I offer holistic dance workshops, I offer single sessions, I offer teachers trainings, embodiment trainings, advanced teachers tracks, year groups, and retreats. I would be very happy to see you at one of our events. And if you have any questions, please write me an email.